Welcome to everybody joining. We're going to make a start in a few moments, so please sit tight. Can see everyone is jumping into the webinar. We're going to make a start in a few moments, so please sit tight again. Okay, I think we're ready to start, and anyone who's joining us will miss a bit of the introduction, but not the main part of the event. So a huge welcome to everybody joining today. Thank you for logging in and joining our SuperWomen in Tech webinar. My name is Rebecca, and I'm the Marketing Director at Source Group International, and I'm delighted to be your host this afternoon. For those of you who don't know SGI, we're a global partner in recruitment and consulting, and our mission is to deliver world-class tech talent solutions that empower businesses and individuals to discover their potential. We're committed not only to delivering innovative solutions, but also to fostering the community around us and looking for opportunities for women and underrepresented groups in the technology space to have their voice heard. So today's event is part of our SuperWomen in Tech meetup group. And we've got plenty other groups on our meetup space. If you're interested in joining them, follow this QR code just on the screen here. We built the SuperWomen in Tech group to connect, amplify, and empower women working in or aspiring to work in the technology space. So throughout the year, we'll be hosting webinars just like this one, as well as live meetups and opportunities to get involved and spotlight your voice and bring our tech communities together. As part of our other meetups, we are hosting or launching, should I say, our data group in a few weeks' time. We'll be sending over information about this after the event and would love to see as many people as possible joining that and getting involved. Just a few housekeeping points before we move on to our main presentation. This session is going to last roughly an hour. And if you do need to drop off early, do not fear, the webinar is being recorded. We'll send over the webinar recording in a follow-up email after the session. We have a chat and we would love for everyone to get involved. Let us know where you're from. We like to see our global community growing. Our chat is being monitored by our SGI team, so anything we do need to take down will be taken down quite quickly. We will have a Q&A at the end of the presentation, so you can see at the bottom of your screen, there is a Q&A button. Please drop your questions in when you've got them, and after Olena's main presentation, we will pick those up. If you're having any technical challenges, can't see or hear the presentation, again, drop a message in the chat and we'll pick it up straight away and see how we can help you. But really looking forward to getting this event started. So without further ado, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and introduce our keynote speaker today. So I'm joined by Olena Slyshkova, a Principal Solutions Architect at Cognizant NetCentric. Now, throughout her career, her progression from junior, senior, tech lead and solution architect, Olena has learned that changes in responsibility and scope are not often documented between job levels. Olena covers first-hand experience and cross-team collaboration and leadership roles, as well as the ability to identify what works well in real technical environments. So today she's going to be sharing her experience from individual contributor to technical leader. And it's really going to be an interesting and actionable presentation that I'm sure will invoke lots of discussion and questions. So thank you so much, Olena. Over to yourself.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. Today, I'm going to talk about transition from individual contributor to technical leader. Imagine an electronic device. It works perfectly. Everything is fine as long as it's plugged in. Unplug it from electricity and it stops immediately. Plug it back and it works again. Unplug it and it doesn't. No power, no operation. And now, imagine a spinning top. A simple toy most of us had as children. You spin it with your hands and it starts moving. And then you take your hand away. But it does not stop. It keeps spinning on its own. Slower and slower, yes, but it doesn't stop instantly. And it continues to work even when you are not longer touching it. Now think about leadership. In this metaphor, with an electronic device, electricity is a technical leader. The device is a team. If the leader is present, the team works. If the leader steps away, everything stops. And that's not effective leadership. The spinning top is different. You give energy, give momentum and direction, but the system does not depend on you totally and is able to continue running even completely without you. That's kind of leadership we want to build. Today, I will talk about what makes a move from individual contributor to a good leader so challenging, especially for technical specialists. the key blockers that show up in this transition, and how we can address them in practice. But before diving into that, let me briefly introduce myself. My name is Olena Slyshkova, and I've been working in IT for over 20 years. I started my career as software engineer and went through the same path as many technical specialists. So from software developer to tech lead and eventually to architecture roles. I spent many years working as a tech lead in large enterprise environments, leading distributed teams of different sizes and level of maturity. And today I work as a solution architect in Berlin. Over these years, I've experienced this transition myself and have also worked with many technical experts going through the same shift. And that's why this topic is both professional and personal for me. I want to start with a broader perspective. What you can see, it's not a role map, it's a skills map. All of us as IT professionals, we operate across these 6 areas to some extent. As individual contributors, most of our energy is concentrated in technical expertise and system design. And as we move towards technical leadership, the scope expands. And of course, as technical professionals, you already have some level of expertise across all of these areas. You collaborate, you make decisions, you think about impact, and you interact with stakeholders. The difference is that you grow into a leadership role. These areas require more depth and more intentionality. We don't stop being technical. That's our foundation, and it remains critical. What changes is that we start operating more actively in collaboration, leadership, and business alignments. And the transition is not about abandoning engineering, it's about expanding the range of competences we actually use. Let's start by looking at the individual contributor perspective. As individual contributors, we primarily are responsible for our own results, for the quality of the codes we write or requirements we gather or test scenarios we create. And our focus is on technical depth, mastering our tools, technologies, and problem-solving skills. We usually work on individual tasks or within specialized area. Most of our decisions are guided by expertise, by understanding the technology deeply and choosing the best possible technical solution. And when it comes to growth, the typical path is even deeper specialization, becoming a senior or principal expert or someone who is recognized for their mastery in specific domain. And this is foundation which is common for most of us, from strong technical skills and a drive to solve complex problems ourselves. But unfortunately, being even a brilliant expert in your domain doesn't automatically prepare us to lead a team efficiently. Most of new leaders go into leadership because they are great experts, really good at solving problems, and they also are a go-to person in their domains. But here is a paradox. The very same habits that made you a great individual contributor can get in the way of being an effective leader. So let's take a look now at the perspective of the tech leads and see what actually changes. The main shift when moving from individual contributor to tech lead is shift in accountability. And everything else, everything else that we are going to discuss later, focus, impact, and so on, it's a consequence of the shifts in accountability. So, as an expert, you're responsible for your own results. these are things that you can handle by yourself, relying on your skills, your expertise, and your time. As a leader, your accountability grows beyond what one person can deliver. And you are now accountable for an area, a scope, or even entire projects, something that requires coordinated efforts of several people. And that's exactly why the leader role exists at all, to make sure the collective results of work of the team leads to the right results. And this logically brings us to the question of primary focus. As individual contributor, your main value comes from deep technical expertise and delivering high quality work yourself. Your impact is directly tied to what you personally produce. But when we move into technical leadership, your role expands beyond your personal execution. Yes, you still contribute technically, but now you also shape technical direction, you define standards, you make key decisions and ensure the consistency across the solution. And the focus shifts from solving individual problems to shaping how the work is done and how technical decisions come together as a system. When we talk about impacts, the scope naturally becomes broader at technical leadership level. Your decisions influence not only a specific component, for example, but the direction and quality and stability of the teamwork. And of course, with broader impacts, a higher cost of mistakes comes as well. Another important change is timescale. The things you are working on as a leader often take weeks or even months rather than hours a day. This longer horizon evidently adds complexity because you have to think ahead, plan dependencies, deal with uncertainty, and this simply doesn't exist at the task level. When we look at the growth path, the trajectory changes significantly. In technical leadership, growth is no longer defined by depth alone. It's defined by scale and complexity. Leading larger scope of work, operating in more complex environments, and taking accountability for broader outcomes. The question shifts from how complex a problem can I solve to how much complexity can I structure, align, and guide. And finally, decisions become broader and more systematic. They affect direction, priorities, trade-offs, and sometimes long-term consequences of the team or of the projects. You operate with less certainty and more constraints, and you need to make decisions that balance business priorities, technical considerations, and also your team members' interests, which often does not fully align. And understanding this shift alone helps already explain why this transition is rarely simple. And at the same time, simply being aware of these differences already makes it much easier to navigate this change. Clarifying what's actually expected from you in your new role is one of the first and most essential steps in making a successful transition. And of course, there are many challenges on this journey, but today, let's focus on the first and most fundamental ones, the challenges that tend to appear early and often harder to overcome than they initially seem. And we are switching to the challenge number one, mindset shift. In my experience, the mindset shift is a big struggle, and not only for new leaders, but also for experienced ones. I've met highly skilled experts in official leading positions who never managed to switch their mind from being an individual contributor to becoming a leader and enabler. And this is a very common problem for IT experts because We are usually deeply technical. We have strong tech brain and we are highly focused on solving problems ourselves. And many of us also used to working as solitary contributors. So let's see an example. And this is a hero of the project, known to everyone, always there for a firefighting and has a solution for every problem. This tech lead has undeniable strengths. Yeah, we need to admit. He is highly skilled, deeply technical and knowledgeable, and truly dedicated to delivering results. And this is great. So we can ask what's wrong. And to answer this, we need to take a closer look at what actually happens under the hood. While being a great expert, this tech lead works as a lone wolf, centralizing all knowledge and technical decisions in his hands. Being one of the best technical experts, this lead easily spots others' mistakes, but instead of turning them into mentoring moments, those mistakes are often seen as incompetence. And this only reinforces the belief that it's faster and safer to do everything alone. And as a result, what do we have? No system or foundation or no framework is built for the team. Little time is spent on knowledge sharing or documentation. A bottleneck forms around this role, with all processes closed around one person. And team becomes dependent and struggles to work independently. And here is a paradox. In this setup, it's actually easy to become a hero. And that's why it's so attractive, this model. When issues appear, there is only one person who can fix them, because all knowledge and processes are concentrated in one place. So while this tech lead looks like a hero on the surface, in reality, leadership fails. And I want to add here that usually this does not happen intentionally and often happens without awareness. But why? Why this happens? Because technical expertise and problem-solving abilities leads to a leadership position, but the mindset never shifted from individual contributor to a leader. As a result, unfortunately, the strongest qualities start working against the team and the project, and instead of enabling growth. And there is also one important point here that I would like to add. The problem is not only that carrying everything on your shoulders is exhausting, and it's not only about team members not being able to grow. The real issue is that no single person, no matter how strong or knowledgeable or experienced, can sustainably drive a complex project alone. In isolated moment, this model can look impressive. From the outside, everything may still look under control for a while, but it's impossible to build a large project that remains stable and sustainable in the long terms on the hero model. This kind of leadership is essentially a one-way ticket to failure. The good news is that this is not a personality issue. This is a behavioral pattern, and patterns can be changed. So what can we do starting today? But before we go into concrete actions, I would like to clarify the goal. The goal is not to become less involved. The goal is to move from a model where nothing works without a tech lead, like a device without electricity, to a model where the team operates as a system. In the first model, everything is routed through one person. All decisions, approvals, and knowledge are concentrated there. The team depends on that constant input to function. Another approach is where tech lead is still highly valuable, but not as a central power source. Instead, the tech lead enables movement like a spinning top. The system stays in motion not because one person holds everything together, but because of structure, clarity, and distributed ownership. The tech lead still contributes expertise, still makes important decisions, still sets direction. But the fundamental approach shifts from solving everything personally to build a system in which the whole team can operate independently and effectively. So first, what we can do, it's challenge your task ownership. Take a simple step. List your recurring tasks and decisions. And then I ask yourself, why am I doing this? Does this really require my level of expertise? And very often the answer will be no. Then check which task truly must stay with you, and everything else is a candidate to delegation. Cleaning up this list is usually the first visible shift, which can be easily done. Second, decentralized knowledge and processes. If knowledge lives only in your head, you will remain the bottleneck, even with the best intentions. Start documenting decisions, technical context, and recurring processes. Not perfectly, just consistently. Remove yourself as a default approval step wherever possible. If everything is even informally owned by one person, the system will always collapse back to that person. Distributing ownerships means intentionally identifying people who can take responsibility for specific domains. And pay attention, not just tasks, the whole domains, areas where decisions are made, trade-offs are discussed, and standards are defined. It means creating real accountability beyond yourself as a tech lead. Important, this does not mean that your accountability disappears. You remain accountable for the overall outcome. The success of these domains is still part of your responsibility as a lead. What changes is the level of your involvement. Instead of making every decision and handling every detail personally, you step out of day-to-day execution. You are no longer the person doing all the work with your own hands. You stay involved. You are there for key turning points, and you review quality, and you challenge direction if necessary, and ensure alignments. But operational ownership sits with someone else. And another important thing which I would like to say is ownership must be explicit. If it's not clearly assigned, it remains psychologically yours. And once ownership is existed and explicit and visible to everyone, the dynamics changes. Question go to the domain owners. Decisions are prepared there. And this is very important structural shift from hero model to a good leadership. And finally, for distributed ownership to work, while you still remain accountable for the overall outcome, decision boundaries must be defined and defined clearly. Even if specific domains or sub-areas are owned by others, they still fall within your area of accountability. That means that things should work without you being involved all the time, but never without clarity. You need to make explicit which decisions a team can make independently, which decisions require alignment with you, and where approval is mandatory. And at the same time, establish recurring touch points when people can reach out to you without urgency. And now we are going to switch to the challenge number 2. And the challenge number 2 is called authority versus approachability. We all want to be liked and respected, and we want that people feel comfortable coming to us, yes. And at the same time, we want that they take us seriously. And many new leaders go too far for one side. They either try to be everyone's friends and they lose authority, or they become too controlling, too authoritarian, and lose connection with the team. And neither extreme works in the long run. The real goal is to create clarity and warmth at the same time, because authority doesn't mean being called aggressive or overly controlling. It means being clear, grounded, and reliable. And approachability doesn't mean being a pushover, or does not mean being that you need to agree with everyone's opinion. But it means that you need to be open, curious, and emotionally intelligent. So you don't need to choose between the two, quite the opposite. You need to combine them. So what you can practically start doing. IT teams are made of highly skilled professionals. It's not a secret. And these people don't respond well to hierarchical authority. The way to build authority as a lead and technical team is through competence, clarity, and consistency. Competence is very important, of course. It's related to technical expertise. But it separates a very important topic, but not the focus of the session of today. So we start with clarity. Make expectations explicit and documented. Use structured communication, clear agendas for meetings, written summaries afterwards, and documented agreements for important decisions. Define and document team standards and best practices. What is important is applying this consistently and including ourselves. Leadership credibility starts with personal consistency. Follow through your commitments. And yes, the same applies to difficult decisions. Stay aligned with your principles, especially under pressure. And make decisions transparently and explain your reasoning. Involve the team in discussions where it makes sense. Authority should provide clarity, not dominance. When people will see that you are consistent, structured, and principled, respect will follow, and authority becomes natural rather than forced. At the same time, foster approachability, but with boundaries. Be open to ideas, feedback, and alternative viewpoints. Ensure there are clear and predictable ways for the team to reach out to you. Establish regular touch points. My voice is not my friend today. So establish regular touch points, one-to-ones, and team things, and make it clear how people can approach you, and so communication does not depend on urgency. But at the same time, maintain clear time and role boundaries. Approachability does not mean constant availability or becoming everyone's friend. It does not require sharing personal matters or agreeing with every opinion, but be open to dialogue, receptive to feedback, and emotionally mature, especially under pressure during escalations or conflicts. Maturity shows in calm, pragmatic responses rather than emotional reactions. And we switch to the challenge number 3. The challenge number 3 is the challenge of delegation. So it's a final one which I want to talk about today. We already touched a little bit on delegation earlier. Then when we discussed the hero leadership model and the importance of building a system where the team can operate independently and effectively. But I would like to address this topic of delegation separately. There is a very subtle but critical element hidden inside it. There is one shift that often blocks us from delegating successfully, and even more importantly, it blocks the deeper transition from individual contributor to leader. And once you recognize this pattern and perhaps recognize yourself in it, that awareness alone can trigger a significant shift in how you approach transition to technical leadership. That's why I believe this deserves focused attention. So delegation, it's not just a management tool, it's an emotional decision. When you delegate, you might feel like you're giving up control, quality, relevance, and also you may feel that you are losing your identity. If I'm not coding, if I'm not testing or writing requirements, then who am I? And the leadership model I'm presenting here is based on clarity, accountability, and distributed ownership. And without delegation, this model simply cannot exist. That's why it's important to be honest with yourself. Is there an internal resistance? Is there a discomfort? Is there a subtle fear behind letting go? And internal resistance to delegation often hides behind very reasonable arguments. You may tell yourself that you don't want to overload the team, or that it will be faster if you just do it by yourself, or that you will probably have to rework it anyway once someone else completes it. And it's important to pause here and honestly separate the real reason from the excuse. It's completely normal that sometimes you want to take a specific task on yourself. And as tech leads, we are still technical professionals and we are involved, and we may enjoy certain type of work, and you may genuinely prefer to handle a particular development task. And that's totally fine, and there is nothing wrong with that. The problem begins when the desire to help the team or avoid rework becomes a consistent excuse to avoid delegation. Delegation is a skill that has to be learned and structured. It should not evidently harm the project or the result. And if it does, the issue is not in delegation itself. It's in how it's designed. And we need to remember that, of course, no one will ever do a task exactly the way you would do. So it's totally normal. Two people will never produce identical work. And the goal is to build a system where different people can contribute in different ways and still produce a strong overall result. So, for IT experts, the fear of delegation is usually not about process. It's about identity, risk, and also a tendency to gravitate toward familiar, well-understood activities and to prefer quick satisfaction from short-term outcomes. Let's see what practical steps can be done. Approach delegation intentionally. This is the first thing. Delegation should not happen only when you are overloaded. You choose to delegate not because you cannot do the work. You delegate because if you do not, you won't have the time and energy to focus on the responsibilities of a tech lead, the work which you're responsible for, that aligns the team, removes blockers, and drive collective success. So, as a first step, separate fear from facts. Notice this internal narrative. It will take longer, they won't do it properly, I'll have to redo it by myself anyways. So catch it and treat it intentionally. Sometimes it's true, and sometimes this is only assumptions or your feelings. And even if objectively it's faster to complete a task yourself, that alone is not a sufficient reason to do everything on your own. Speed in the short term does not justify creating long-term dependency on one person, on you. And here we are moving to the second point. Protect quality with structure. not control. It's quite common, try to reduce anxiety by staying involved in every detail. And it increases your stress, it consumes your time and energy, and it doesn't help your team to grow into independent, effective contributors. Instead, define clear expectations, technical and quality standards. This all should be in a written form, and this is very important, and all team members must be aware of those. So do proper onboardings for your new team members, and sometimes common sense expectations are not that common in reality. So make sure you document even basics in case you see it's needed, and replace micromanagement with structure. And delegating layers. Delegation is not everything or nothing. You don't jump from full control to full ownership overnight. Start small, expand over time, and it helps on both sides. For you to learn how to delegate, and for your team also to learn how to take ownership increasingly. So first you delegate execution, but you keep direction. On the second layer, you can already delegate problem solving, but with boundaries. On the third level, you delegate the full decision making, but with checkpoints from your sides. And in the final fourth level, you completely delegate ownership of outcomes within the tasks. And finally, normalize imperfection. Delegated work may look different from how you would do it, and different, it does not mean it's wrong. So if you expect completely identical output of you, of how you would do it, so you are not delegating, you are just trying to clone yourself. Delegation requires tolerance for variations and also space for learning. And before closing the topic of delegation, there is also one element I would like to consider is decision filter. Because delegation, it's not only about how you transfer responsibility. It's also about what you should not transfer. If it's a task is strategic, high risk, or critically impacts people, it likely requires your direct involvement. And to close, here are the key takeaways to carry forward. Technical leadership expands the areas you operated in. It doesn't replace your technical identity. Moving from technical expert to technical leader is not abandoning your engineering identity. It's expanding your scope, aiding to technical contribution, leadership, collaboration, business alignment skills, and also system-level thinking and impacts. Second, scale of accountability is a fundamental shift. The core difference between an individual contributor and a tech lead is a scale of accountability. You move from owning personal outputs to owning outcomes across a broader scope, and everything else follows from the shift. Next, avoid the hero model, build distributed ownership. Without shifting from problem solver to system builder, it's easy to fall into the hero model. Hero leadership creates dependencies and bottlenecks, and sustainable leadership builds structure, ownership, and capability in others. Authority comes from clarity, consistency, and competence, of course, and approachability and authority can coexist. Good leaders combine both. Delegation requires overcoming identity-based resistance. Recognizing this resistance is essential. And finally, if you forget everything from the session, and I would like you to remember one thing, great leadership creates opinion tops rather than electronic devices, the systems that continue running without constant power from the leader. Thank you very much. If the session resonates with you, let's stay connected. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn and mention this webinar in the short notes. And we will have Q&A session right now, but if your questions come up later, you are welcome to reach out to me on LinkedIn and I will be very happy to respond. Thank you.
Thank you for that brilliant presentation. Taken a few notes down myself, actually, because it can definitely be transferred across different roles as well as across the tech space. So we've had a few questions come in, so let's jump into them. Our first question is, we'll go with this one. What are the most useful skills I could start building today if I aspire to become a technical lead?
Yeah, so the first thing is clarity is the most important. And so this is a skill which is a key, I believe. So try to build this for now, even before shifting into the official or even inofficial role. Try to be clear and intentional on what you are doing within your own tasks. And this is the key thing, and this will lead you to the ability to see how the team later will be able to work, and you will be able to create the system for your team. When you have your clarity for yourself, you will be able to bring this clarity to your team.
Brilliant, thank you. I think the next question follows quite nicely on from that. For people who have moved from being a peer to a manager, what strategies would you recommend for leading without micromanaging?
Oh yeah, yeah. So micromanagement is something which I was guilty in some years ago. So because most likely this person who is asking this question, most likely this is a very responsible person. Because I also for some periods, some years ago, I like equaled micromanagement with responsibility, but it's not the same. So micromanagement, unfortunately, cannot scale, and it doesn't help much when your team grows as well. So this sometimes it may be helpful, and sometimes really in a short term, micromanagement may bring some short-term results, but try to go out from it intentionally. So the response, so what can you use instead of micromanagement is building a system. And so I said a couple of times system in this presentation. It's not just words for me. I really believe in this. So build the system where can everyone understand its own role in the system, general technical processes, recurring processes, everything should be clear, documented, and really function as a system. And then you will not need micromanagement.
Brilliant, thank you. And we've got, what could some signs be that you are in an environment or a company that will encourage your leadership path and not become a technical lone wolf?
Sorry, I didn't hear this quite well. Let me find it.
Of course, so it's from Irene. And Irene asks, what are the signs that a company or an environment that will encourage your leadership pathway and not for you to become a technical lone wolf?
Sorry, probably this question is formulated the way I cannot really understand the...
So if I can kind of define it, I'd say it's what are the good characteristics or traits a company could offer to the individual to promote them towards becoming a leader?
So yeah, so I think in the first place it starts with you. So company, what company will value? The company will value result. So of course the culture in company also matters. So and in a company with a good culture, it's much easier to really build good collaboration and cooperation and move towards the same result together with your team. But in any case, it starts with you. So you need in yourself to understand, so what are your techniques as a tech lead, and catch if you see, for example, if you tend to work as a technical lone wolf. So you try to understand why this happens and what you can do to go out from this model.
Brilliant. Thank you. And a question from Anna here is, how do we make someone responsible for a certain domain, and how do we avoid the same problem of being a bottleneck? If this person is not available anymore, then this area is not covered by anyone. So I guess we're talking about levers or those moving around the business.
Yeah, so what would be my approach and what is my approach? So in every project there are some smaller areas, and you find a good key people who you can assign to these areas as owners. But no one is cannot be replaceable. I mean, at any level, so a person can be replaced. So of course, it should be some procedures. If the person leaves the company or leaves the project, you may prepare in advance for this. But I mean, this person is, it's like different scale. Okay, you are as a tech lead, you operate on a scale of your project. This person operates on a smaller scale, so of the domain which this person is a lead or accountable person. So it's also for this person, you need to also help to build inside the smaller area the same principles which you do on your broader level. So documentation, documented processes, knowledge in the head of this person. Also automation, of course, if possible, depending on what is this area. And also it should not be completely closed, so it should be transparent for other people. For some domains, I mean, what is happening there? For some domains, you even can change people. So you can, for example, have one person for, let's say, one cycle. If, for example, as an example, you have a release manager, so there is a release and deployment, and you have a clear role of release manager. So you can assign this person, maybe not for forever, let's say for several months or for several, I don't know, half a year for this role is okay, or several months. So, and then you rotate, because it's also chance for other people to try to do this, also to share knowledge and to learn the responsibility.
Of course. And let's say going back to your point around documenting everything, having those clear processes in place, so you have that supporting information for yourself always. Okay, so I've got a couple more questions. We've got a few more minutes left. So how to handle the conflicts, how to manage underperformers in your team as a leader, and the final part of that question is, to what extent should a team leader be involved in the code? So 3 parts to that.
Okay, about the code, it's a very common question, and every tech lead, I think, at some point asks herself, what is the extent you need to code. So it depends, of course. I believe that tech lead should not go too far from coding, so because you will lose context completely. So evidently, it should not be 100% or even 70%. It should be less. You need to also see how big is your team, right? So if your team is 3 people, you and, for example, 1 front-end developer and 1 back-end developer, so most likely it will be areas where you would like to code. If it's really bigger team, so what does it mean? If the team is bigger, it means that you will have more responsibilities, you will have more areas, you will have more areas where you need to step in as a lead. So you will not be able to code really too much, let's say, or maybe even to that extent that you would like by yourself. So definitely coding from time to time is necessary, and staying close to the technical background, so technical stack, and what is your team actually is doing is necessary. But you should find this balance by yourself.
Of course. The second part of that question was focused on underperformers. And I guess I'll jump in with a bit of a question there, is how do you balance underperformers and then avoiding micromanaging them?
Oh, yeah. I mean, so it's of course. So if there are people in the team who are not that very, performant, and especially not because. So if you separate what is, try to understand what is the reason why this person underperforms. So maybe this person lacks skills. Okay, this can be solved, right? So you can find a mentor for this person and help this person to grow. And what else? Maybe this person is shy. So it may be various reasons which are really solvable. So, and I don't think micromanagement is the only one which you can use. So especially in a long run, right? So you have a team, you have people, and you can understand what's going on, what is the dynamic. And if the person is just, like, is very resistant to work in general, it's not much what you can do. So even with micromanagement, you really cannot cover this. You will burn yourself, but this person will stay, let's say, lazy or not really performant. So try to separate what can be solved, what cannot be solved, and maybe if there is issue which cannot be solved, and decide how you deal with that.
Cool. Oh, brilliant. Thank you. And final two questions. We'll just have one more drop in. We've got time for the last three. Is what kind of metrics or skills should I prioritize and improve on myself to naturally move from individual contributor to tech lead? Any tips on these?
Yeah, so metrics and here KPIs, it's very, very challenging for like leadership in general. So if you are talking about like metrics and KPIs for your team, because when you become a tech leader, your metrics is your team metrics. So, and then you need to understand what is your goal in the specific team and the specific setup. So in one situation, the real needs of tech lead, I mean, the priority of the tech lead in one example can be developing people. So it may be not that much pressure from the customer or from the timeline, but really the goal is to develop people skills. For example, if you lead a group of juniors and really your exercise, let's say, on a long run is to help these people to grow. This is one thing, right? So you focus on how you grow these people. If you have another situation completely when you have really tight timelines and you have really a lot of pressure from the I don't know, difficult technical solutions, decisions which you need to make. This is completely different situation, right? So you focus on your outcome. You have a deadline, you have a task. So metrics of you as a tech lead are metrics of your team, and you need to understand in every situation. So what is the priority, growing people, or for example meeting the deadline, or meeting the certain level of quality of your product. Yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you. And I'm going to wrap it up with our final question now. If any of our attendees do have any more questions for Olena, as we've said, please do connect and we'll be following up with some information and more opportunities to ask any questions. The final one is, what do you think is the most most problematic for women to take leadership roles? What are the biggest challenges for women to take on leadership roles? Reword that.
Yeah, so I think we are guilty in imposter syndrome. So this is what I can see. So we are really, as women, I mean, everyone maybe, but we are more in tendency to catch this imposter syndrome. And yeah, and this is important to understand that actually, if you're adapting yourself, then most likely you're already not this person who is will be a bad leader. So adapting yourself is already a good sign. So even try to go for it, like assuming that you are not ready. So, and what is actually imposter syndrome is when competence comes before confidence. So don't wait. So, and there are a lot of statistics which we can see. So, for example, if a woman applies to a certain position, women usually applies when really thinking they are completely ready, like 95%. But men apply like much earlier. So because I mean they already see, okay, it matches somehow partially. That's fine. I can apply for this. So really separate your internal doubt, self-doubt, and hesitation, and from really your will and general ability to go into the leading role and do it.
Brilliant. Brilliant. Thank you. Well, thank you very much, Olena, for joining us today and delivering those insights and your presentation. And just for those, just a reminder to everyone, as we said before, We've got our next webinar on the 25th of March, and we'll be joined by Dr. Juliana Walsh, and she'll be talking to us about making an impact in a male-dominated environment and space. So, as I said, we'll do a follow-up and we'll have the link for that event. Please do connect with Olena. Please do keep in touch with us at SuperWomen in Tech. Thank you for joining and have a great day. Cheers. Thanks.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Thank you.